You've spelunked into the Matt Cave. Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Matt Cave. Thank you all so much for spelunking on by. Hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, filled with food, football, and family, preferably in that order. I know I did. And I hope you got what you needed on Black Friday. I didn't. I'm a terrible shopper. My family can attest to this. I'm terrible at it. If I see what I want, I just buy it. I don't really shop around for a price. And so that's basically what I did. I bought most of my family's gifts before Black Friday, which is a mistake, I know. But you know what? I was thinking about it. I saw what they needed or wanted, got it, and it's done. That's how I look at it. I don't know. I'm a terrible shopper. That's the moral of that story. But as always, please do rate, review, like, comment, subscribe, wherever it is, however you listen. It helps a ton. And we want to get as many spelunkers in here as possible. Live the dream. That's the goal. And I can only do that through the help of you guys. And I appreciate each and every one of you for doing it. Now, on the socials front, I did delete my X. It is no longer there. I'm no longer on Twitter. I am thinking about going on another platform, but I don't know. Probably not. I have no idea. I'm just as bad as I am at shopping, I'm even worse at social media, which you can tell if you go to my Facebook or my YouTube. I'm terrible at it. I put the content out there for you guys. I just am terrible at advertising it. So it's something I know I need to get better at, and I will. But I am on Facebook, the Matt Cave Podcast, on YouTube, the Matt Cave Podcast, all one word, and I'm also on twitch.tv/mattscave. That's where you can find me. Let's kind of get into this week. So it's the end of the regular season for college football. I'm going to do an end-of-season review for each team as we go through the next couple of weeks. So this week, it's just an immediate reaction. I haven't done any deep dives like into statistics or trends or anything like that. It's just kind of an immediate reaction to what I saw from BYU and Utah and what I see moving forward. So that's what this week is going to be as we go through the offseason, which is a very long offseason in college football. I'll kind of talk a little bit more into what I would do if I were in charge of any program, like if I were the athletic director or anything like that. I'll do those episodes as we go along. So that's where we're going to start. And then we're going to go into the Utah Hockey Club. I'm going to shift my focus, and I'm going to turn this ship towards focusing in on the Utah Hockey Club, the Utah Jazz, as well as college basketball for Utah and BYU. They're looking pretty good. Both teams are actually looking pretty good as we start the season. Now, Utah hasn't really played anybody, which is the norm in college basketball. The first month or so, you don't really play anybody. You kind of get the feelers out there for what you've got on your team, the style of play, and then you go into conference play. BYU has played a little bit more stiffer competition because of the little tournament they went to during Thanksgiving. So the team's looking pretty good. But that's where the shift in focus is going to be. It's going to be on Utah Hockey Club, Utah Jazz, and the two big universities in the state, their men's basketball programs, and what's going on there. Which is kind of a shift from the past, right? Because I would usually do like locals from the NFL and stuff like that. But I feel like my time is better served with the Utah Hockey Club, the new season, all of that, as well as the excitement around BYU men's basketball this year. Utah men's basketball maybe being a sneaky good team like BYU was last year in the Big 12. And obviously the Jazz, I'll get into them. But that's kind of the focus of the show going forward. I want to let you all know what that is so you know what you're getting into. And I like to keep you guys in the loop. So let's dive into it. Let's start with Utah going to Central Florida and winning 28-14 with 2 interceptions returned for touchdowns. So not only did last week did they extend their record streak, I think it's like 22 straight seasons with a pick 6. They got 2 more against Central Florida, one by Zamiah Vaughn and one by Smith Snowden. 2 very good defensive backs. Zamiah Vaughn's going to be playing on Sundays, and Smith Snowden, while he's still young, if he continues developing the way he has this year, he's going to be playing on Sundays too. So that was really cool. Utah's defense scored as many points as Central Florida. There you go. That's usually a recipe for success, but this season, oh boy, not really for Utah. What I saw from the team on offense, the offensive coordinator, no matter who it was, did not adapt to what they had at the quarterback position. And that's been kind of the modus operandi the past 2 years for whoever the offensive staff was at Utah. Whether it was Andy Ludwig or Mike Bajakian, it doesn't matter. The route concepts and the calls that they were making as far as like the running game was concerned, it just didn't make sense. So for all of you out there, if you have a young quarterback or if you have an inexperienced quarterback, which obviously Luke Batari is the inexperienced one and Isaac Wilson is the young one, you want to make it simple. Quick reads. If it's there, it's not there. If it's there, it's not there. You go 1, not there. 2, not there. Tuck and run. That's usually what you want to do for a young quarterback. These route concepts that they had in the offense were built for Cam Rising, and they never altered it. And so you'd have 15-yard out routes, 10-yard post. Nothing that's a quick slant. There, not there. Fine, I move to my next read. There, not there. Then, time's usually out, and you just run or you throw the ball away. That's easy to coach. That's easy for a young player to understand. I don't know why these guys that are paid hundreds of thousands of dollars don't know that or seem to not care about that or be ignorant and think that their quarterback is better than that. You kind of start at a baseline and you build up from there. You don't really start way above and then go, oh, all right, he's not there. Let's just keep building up from there. That's not how it works. And so what I saw from the passing offense was a little bit better as the game wore on. Obviously, this is all moot because there's going to be an entirely new offensive staff at the University of Utah next season. It's just frustrating as a fan and also as an analyst when I watch that. Because I see what needs to happen, and they're just refusing to do it. And that's a detriment to the guys on the field who are playing their guts out, which Utah has every single week. They never packed it in against Colorado when they were getting blown out. They were still fighting hard the entire time. Like, that's the culture Kyle Whittingham set up, and they're still fighting their guts out. It's just the offensive staff and those minds that are getting paid a lot of money don't know what they're doing, and it's really frustrating to watch. And so that's what I saw. But as the game wore on, Mike Bajakian was getting more used to what Luke Batari could and couldn't do. It got better. Zacharias Williams is the real deal. I think he's a freshman. He's going to be very good if he sticks around. That's the key, if he sticks around. Dorian Singer, fabulous receiver, going pro. He will be playing on Sundays as well. Landon King and Carson Ryan are both very good tight ends. The future is very good so long as these guys stick around. The reason I keep bringing that up is because the entire offensive staff is changing. And so the guys that recruited these people, these young guys, aren't there anymore. And so you bring in a new staff. That new staff, these aren't their guys. And so the new staff will want to go into the transfer portal, bring in some guys, whether that's from JUCO, the FCS level, junior college, or the FCS level. They want to bring in their own guys. And so guys like Mike Mitchell, Carson Ryan, Landon King, who knows? The offensive line did not look very good, but they were playing from behind. That's not how Utah's built. Utah is built to be physical, dominate the line of scrimmage, and run the ball, have their defense protect the lead, get the lead through running the ball and play action pass. That's basically Utah football in a nutshell, in one sentence. That didn't happen the past 2 years. And so Utah's offensive line looked exposed. They weren't. When Utah was able to run the ball and were able to just say, all right, the game is tied or we're up by 3, we're going to pound the rock, we're going to control time of possession, Utah's offense looked like it should. And that's what it looked like against Central Florida. It looked like it should. Now, with a better quarterback, it would be more explosive because there would be more downfield plays and these route combinations would make more sense. But you have to be able to adjust. And that's what was missing the past 2 years with Utah. Now, this game in particular, Mekhi Bernard went off again, 87 yards, 22 carries, fitting send-off for one of the best people to come from the University of Utah in a long time. Zacharias Williams, I can't say good enough about him. He's going to be very good. Landon King and Carson Ryan as well are going to be very good. It's just what's going to happen with this new offensive staff. What's going to happen with Kyle Whittingham? That's the next part I'm getting to. I'm not going to try and predict what he's going to do. Nobody should. Whatever decision Kyle Whittingham makes, he has earned the right to make it. whether that is to step away and retire, whether that is to coach for 1, 2, maybe 3 more years, he's earned the right. But what I like what he's doing is he's making sure that Morgan Scalley, the best defensive coordinator in the country, is involved. Because the past 2 years, Morgan Scalley has really had to hold the line himself. And if Utah didn't name him head coach in waiting, he would probably already be gone. That's the truth of the matter. So what happens? I'll give you some scenarios here. Kyle Whittingham decides to stay 1 more year. That would mean Cam Rising comes back for 1 more year if the NCAA grants his eligibility waiver, which, who knows? 8 years, 2 presidential terms of Cam Rising. My goodness. And the joke is that BYU has the old people. Not anymore. So that's what's going to happen. Cam Rising comes back. That's 1 year. You have these guys that are now seniors like Carson Ryan and Landon King. Okay. The offensive line is more mature. It'll be much better, but they are going to lose some guys. What does that look like? How does the scheme change? Does Morgan Scalley want to open it up more explosives? Or do they want to stick with the ground and pound, play action pass, that sort of thing? Who knows? So, Kyle Whittingham stays for 1 year. Cam Rising comes back for his 800th year, and they get a bunch of guys from the transfer portal. It's the last stand for Kyle Whittingham. I don't see that working out. I don't think that's going to end well. We saw what happened with Kalani Sitake with a ton of transfers at BYU in that first year, last year. It did not go well. I don't think that'll go well for Utah either. Kyle Whittingham says he's going to stay for 2-3 years. I think that's best case scenario if Kyle Whittingham decides to stay, because then it's a more long-range look at what's going on. You're looking more into the future instead of the here and now. It's a lot like in the NFL when you have that aging quarterback, right? Look at the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Just a bunch of plug-and-fill veterans that aren't going to be there for a very long time, have no idea what the offense is going into the season. It takes 5-6 weeks for them to get used to it, and by that point, they're out of the playoff picture. I feel like that would be the same thing if Kyle Whittingham says 1 more year. So, best case scenario is Kyle Whittingham decides to retire. That is best case scenario moving forward for the University of Utah. Because when Morgan Scalley gets to take over, he gets to decide his offensive staff. He gets to put his stamp on what needs to be done. And I think he's more malleable to today's setup with NIL and transfer portal and all of that stuff. Kyle Whittingham's thing, I've been saying it for a couple weeks now. We don't become you, you become us. That doesn't really work anymore. So there's a few things I want to point out. If we look at the coaches that have been around the longest, Kirk Ferentz at Iowa went 9-4. Mike Gundy. Oh boy. Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State. Winless in the Big 12. Horrible, awful, no good, very bad year. Troy Calhoun at Air Force. That's a little bit different because it's a service academy. They don't recruit. You have to build up from what you've got. They don't do NIL. They don't do transfer portal because it's a service academy. So I'm going to throw that one out. But if you look at the 3, none of them were really ever in the national title conversation past week 3. That's the changing nature of college football. Guys like Mac Brown over at North Carolina, gone. Nick Saban, retired. And so if you look at it through a different prism, you kind of just, for the best thing that happens for the University of Utah is Kyle Whittingham hangs it up. He goes out with a win in his final game, which is a lot better than a lot of coaches get. Just look at Mac Brown at North Carolina, Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State. I'm not saying Mike Gundy's gone, but that's not a good look. So that's kind of where we're at with the University of Utah. I don't have a prediction. I just laid out what I see happening. The 3 major, I guess, talking points you want to say about this team. But it begins and ends with Kyle Whittingham. And then if he decides to stay, it begins and ends with Cam Rising again. Cam Rising is a tough son of a gun. But he needs to realize his body's taken a lot of punishment, and he cannot absorb what he used to be able to absorb 3 years ago. He's got to be smarter if he comes back. I don't know if he's able to because that's just not in his nature. Not that he's not smart, just that it's not in his nature to throttle it down. So that's what we're looking forward to for the University of Utah next season. This offseason, the story is going to be Kyle Whittingham. Does he stay or does he go? In my opinion, the best course for the University of Utah moving forward is he hangs it up, becomes a senior advisor, whatever. Just hand it off to Morgan Scalley, who is a Utah man through and through. He one of the best defensive backs that Utah had. He went, instead of pursuing a career in the pros, which he could have done, he decided to go into coaching. He's been at the University of Utah forever. Just hand it over. All right, let's move it along to BYU. BYU also wins to end the season, 30-18 over Houston in a very ugly game. It's a good thing Houston is no good, because if BYU played any other team except for maybe Oklahoma State in the Big 12, they would have lost this game. They would have. They fumbled the ball 4 times. 4 times they fumbled the ball. The first fumble was absolutely embarrassing. The second fumble, again, embarrassing. Third fumble was a muffed punt from Parker Kingston. Fourth fumble was LJ Martin getting it punched out from behind. That's not good. Jake Retzlaff, 8 of 19. That's less than 50%. 167 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. So I guess silver linings, right? He ran for 2 scores. 9 carries, 57 yards. LJ Martin had a very good game, minus the fumbles. 87 yards, 22 carries. Which is an exact mirror of what Mekhi Bernard did against Central Florida. That's pretty funny. Darius Lassiter disappeared the last 3 weeks. Dropped a lot of balls. Not a good look for him because he wants to go pro. That's not a good look. I don't think he gets drafted because of those dropped passes. Simple dropped passes. Now, Jake Retzlaff is not the best and most accurate quarterback in the world. I will give that as a point in favor of Darius Lassiter. The balls that he throws are not catchable. Period. End of story. So, kind of give that to Darius Lassiter. But then he gets tossed at the end of the game in a stupid scuffle that never should have happened. Let Houston talk. Just point at the scoreboard and walk away. Point at the scoreboard and walk away. That's all you got to do. You were up 30-18 at that point. Point at the scoreboard. Walk away. Instead, you get tossed, possibly suspended for the bowl game. That is the last image BYU fans have of you. It's not great. Like the commentators were saying, though, he will be immortalized forever for that play against Oklahoma State. But his tenure at BYU, not the best. A lot of dropped passes, diva behavior a little bit. It's okay to be a diva wide receiver if your name is Chris Carter, Terrell Owens, Michael Irvin, Chad Ochocinco, Hall of Fame guys. You can be a diva receiver. Even Justin Jefferson, all of those guys in the NFL right now that I can't name off the top of my head because I'm tired. I stayed up late for that BYU game. ESPN, please stop. Again, I'm going to say this again. Please stop with these 8:15, 8:30 p.m. kickoffs for either BYU or Utah. We are not in the Pacific time zone. We are the Mountain time zone. We are an hour ahead of the Pacific time zone. Stop with these late kickoffs, please and thank you. Okay, sorry, I'm just tired of it. I'm tired of going through my notes, going through what I did, what I watched, decompressing, and it's 2 a.m. by the time I'm done. I'm tired of it. Literally and figuratively. But diva behavior, seeing the other side of Darius Lassiter, thanks for the memories, bye. That's really how I feel about it. Chase Roberts is going to be missed. That guy, you threw the ball anywhere in his vicinity, 9 times out of 10, he's going to grab it. Whereas Darius Lassiter is about 3 times out of 10. That's a little unfair. I'd say 6 or 7 times out of 10, Darius Lassiter will grab it. But those guys are going to be missed big time. A couple of guys on the offensive line. Connor Pay, he's going to be playing on Sunday. Caleb Etienne probably played himself into consideration to play on Sunday. And then the defense, there's a lot of guys. The defensive line is basically gone. Tyler Batty, Mangelson, John Nelson, those guys are gone. So that's going to be a big lift for Kalani Sitake to replace. Now that they know what they need in the Big 12, though, it'll be a little bit easier because they know what they need to do in the offseason conditioning program, diets, and all that stuff. But overall, this season, resounding success. Yes, the last 3 weeks they went 1-2, but they lost those 2 games by single scores. 28-23 and 17-13. A total of 9 points separates BYU from an undefeated record. This is a perspective check again. Before the season started, every single BYU fan would have taken that. And oh, by the way, you won the Holy War in heartbreaking fashion, which never happened in the Kyle Whittingham era for BYU. Like, it happened twice. You had the John Beck pass to Johnny Harleen, and then you have this field goal at the end of regulation. Man, if you told me that was going to happen before this season, I would have looked at you like your head was on backwards. And I gave the most rosy projection for BYU of anybody that I know of. 6 wins is what I said. They did that and won 4 more. They have a few all Big 12 performers. Connor Pay on the offensive line, all Big 12, even though he missed a couple of games. Chase Roberts could be second team all Big 12. Iowa State's receivers are very good. Obviously got Travis Hunter at Colorado. Chase Roberts could be a second team all Big 12 selection. Tyler Batty, all Big 12 first team. Easy. Jacob Robinson could be all Big 12. Jack Kelly, absolutely all Big 12. Isaiah Glasker, second team all Big 12. So if you would have told me that there would be all conference performers, the team goes 10-2, they lose by a combined 9 points, I would have taken that 10 times out of 10 and said, goodbye, thanks for your cash. This season was a resounding success. Now, I talked about this last week. I'm going to talk about it again. All these people calling for Aaron Roderick to be fired. No. And I am the biggest Aaron Roderick critic of anybody I know. He does not need to be fired. He needs to have a come-to-Jesus moment with Kalani Sitake. And I think that's going to happen this offseason. Because the sideline reporter, who I think is fabulous at her job, Stormy Bonatoni, she talked to Kalani Sitake in between the third and fourth quarter, and she said, and quoted Kalani Sitake here, our defense has had to bail out our offense too often. Kalani Sitake never says that. He never said that about Ilaisa Tuiaki when that defense was terrible. He's never said something like that about his coordinators, ever. So that's interesting. That's a shot across the bow of Aaron Roderick saying, dude, why are we running trick plays in the red zone when we are running over that defense? Like, they ran for 189 yards. They were running them over. And you do a trick play? Nah. And then again, at the other end zone, you run a reverse in the red zone where you know the footing is terrible because the field is frozen. Why are you doing that? So, Aaron Roderick doesn't need to be fired. That is way, way too far on the overreacting scale. He needs a readjustment, and he needs a chat with Kalani Sitake and possibly Jay Hill going, all right, we get it, you're smarter than everybody else. That's me saying that. That's not them saying that. I've always said that about Aaron Roderick. He is smarter than everybody else. That's why he calls the game the way he calls the game. But you need to just get back to basics. Look, we get it. Jake Retzlaff is a loose cannon. He's probably going to turn the ball over if you trust him. But he's who we've got. You got to do something. You got LJ Martin, who is already built like an NFL running back. You've got an offensive line who beefed up over the offseason and can push people around. Just do it. So I think that's what needs to happen for BYU's offense. He doesn't need to be fired. He just needs a refocusing on what made BYU successful early in the season. I think against Utah, he started to panic, and then that kind of carried over into, very much carried over against Kansas, and then it carried a little bit more into Arizona State. in that first half. And it kind of carried over again into Houston with these trick plays. You don't need trick plays to score. You don't. You don't need the commentators to sing your praises. You don't. You just need to do your job. And that's one of my favorite things that Bill Belichick ever said. Do your job. And for Aaron Roderick is to keep it simple, stupid. Just keep it simple. Run the ball. You're going to get in the end zone. Do not have Jake Retzlaff do an RPO. We saw what happened against Kansas when he decided to throw it. So that's really where we're at with BYU. No changes need to come. The special teams was fantastic this year. The defense was even better. And the offense was great for about the first half of the season and then tailed off towards the end. Again, if you have BYU fans and you told them this before the season, me in particular, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. So let's turn the temperature down, not call for anybody's heads, and just say, look, this is what needs to happen. We know what we need going into the offseason to reload and go for it again next year. Colorado is going to be substantially worse. Their Heisman winning, do everything guy is going pro. Their first team All Big 12 quarterback is going pro. So they're going to be demonstrably worse. Arizona State, Cam Scadaboo, gone. So, and as well as I think a couple of their receivers are gone as well. So Arizona State's going to regress. Utah's going to get better. Oklahoma State, who knows? TCU is going to get better. So you know what you need to kind of stay at the top of the heap now. You've seen success. Keep building towards it. And don't overreact like a fan. So I think I've shown some maturity on my part when it comes to this. And this episode has gone way too long for these two subjects, but I had a lot to say, obviously. So quickly, switching gears, we are going to the Utah Hockey Club. 6-0 over Vegas in Vegas. That is hugely impressive. Now, the Golden Knights did not start Aiden Hill in goal. It was Samsonov, so take it with a grain of salt. A very small grain of salt, though. And the team was flying early. It was great. Clayton Keller finally got on the scoreboard after a few games of doing nothing. Schmaltzy got his first 2 goals of the year. Fantastic stuff. Really. Jackson Stauber, 29 saves, and the first shutout of the season for Utah Hockey Club. Now, worrying signs. Face-off percentage. Utah is not very good on face-off. The amount of minutes that have to go to Sergachev, very worrying. He's playing playoff minutes. I've been saying it before. I'm saying it again. That's not sustainable. So they need to do something to address the blue line. They just lost Lamoureux for a while, who was showing substantial growth. They're losing him for a few months due to an injury. They've got to do something about the blue line because Connor Ingram is a good goalie. He's just facing like 50 shots a game. Even Vijmelka was facing 50, 60 shots a game, so that's got to change. But the offense is still incredibly good. Dylan Gunther didn't even score a goal in this game. He got an assist, and he's leading the team in goals. So I'm very excited about the future of Utah Hockey Club. They are very inconsistent, but that comes with the territory of a young team that has a very weak blue line outside of Sergachev. If he makes a mistake, then everything falls apart. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for Utah Hockey Club. I'll be able to give more insight as the season goes along, now that I'm able to focus on them more. But that's kind of what I'm seeing. Moving on to the Utah Jazz. They are finally losing again. And they need to lose for the rest of the season. I don't want to see them get more than 16 wins this year. They need one of those top 2 guys in the draft. Whether it's Thompson or Flagg, they need one of the 2. They get either one of them, that accelerates the rebuild a million miles an hour. And that needs to happen. Will Hardy, like I said a couple weeks ago, is too good at his job. I doubt he's going to let that happen, but it needs to happen. I think Danny Ainge and Justin Zanik need to pull the rug out from under him and just trade away John Collins, trade away a couple of the other veterans and go, you're playing the young guys. Come hell or high water, you're playing the young guys. I think that's what needs to happen sooner rather than later. Maybe even trade away Walker Kessler. I don't know. But they need to do something to start losing more games. All right, so that is the episode this week, everybody. Thank you all so much for listening. A little bit on the long side. I apologize, but I had a lot to say about BYU and Utah. Next week, I will do the post-mortem, if you will, of Utah's football season. Do a little bit deeper dive into what is going to happen. Maybe some news will come out between now and then when I talk about what I think Utah needs to do. It's pretty obvious, but I'm still going to say it. And then it will be BYU after that. And then I might do a Utah State one. Who knows? But thank you all for being here, and I will see you all next week when we spelunk back into the Matt Cave.